stories change the way we think about society. Every year, millions suffer in silence. Today, we bring those unheard voices to the center. Hello everyone.
I am Kunal Sokti.
And I am Triveni Kathan. Welcome you to today's episode of our podcast series. I am delighted to introduce our distinguished guests, two esteemed faculty members from National Law University, Tripura.
Firstly, we have Dr. Deepikanta Chakraborty, Assistant Professor of Political Science at National Law University, Tripura.
Joining her is Dr. Debashree Devnath, Assistant Professor of Family Law at National Law University, Tripura.
In this podcast, we will talk about gender-based and domestic violence in our society. Starting with you, ma'am. We are dividing into a sobering but a crucial topic today. Using the 2022 National Crime Record Bureau data for India as a starting point, the report noted over 4,45,000 cases of crime against women. That's roughly 51 FIR informations or FIR filed every single hour. And yet, experts tell us that this likely is just the tip of the iceberg with vast underreporting. Given this immense scale of reported crimes, according to you, why does gender-based violence remain so deeply entrenched in Indian society?
First of all, I just wanted to clarify, is this a violence against women? Or because gender-based violence doesn't include women only. So, can you please clarify this point?
Well, it's related to women itself.
So, it is mostly the structural barrier that is stopping, or the underreported part that you have highlighted. It is the structural barrier that brings economic aspect. Women are dependent. Since very early days, we know women are dependent. So, women are dependent economically, women are dependent emotionally. Okay, and at the same time, we have social barriers also that is stopping women from going outside. If I am beaten up by my husband or in-laws, then I will prefer not to go outside letting people know, because it is not shameful for those who are beating me up, rather for me. So it's a social, cultural barrier that is stopping women, and that is somehow, I think, stopping women from, reporting cases.
Beyond individual acts, what are the deep-rooted social, cultural and systematic factors that perpetuate gender-based violence, seemingly overriding the deterrent effect of legal punishment and the growing trend of women reporting these crimes?
It's very ironical. In the daytime, I'm the wife of my husband. I love and I provide all the care works. At night, I am beaten up by my husband. But when it comes to the day, in the dawn, things are all right. Okay? So this is the very ironical part. Okay? So as I have mentioned on, is the structural barrier. What do you mean by that structure? What do you mean by that structure? Why women are silent? And what is the, what are the reasons? What are the causes? First of all, because I have come through a lot of, because during my days I have, gone through the projects, many projects I have done on this very topic. So women are fine with when you are slept. Okay, you are slept, you are beaten up, I am fine with that. Okay. And the very basic issue, okay, I have burden, I have a child. So when I am a child, I have a child, it means that is stopping me, I have responsibilities. I cannot go outside. I cannot tell, because if I go, and it is something I believe that when women are uneducated, even if they are educated, if they are not earning, this is the factor, I think. And the social issues, cultural issues are there, because sometimes I don't get support from my family, my parents. This structural barrier, my parents will say what people will say, social stigma. These kind of things are stopping women. Okay, so that's why they are not going outside and reporting. And this is the very rooted, cause of this kind of incidents.
Ma'am, the next question is to you. So let us, like ma'am mentioned about cruelty that women face from the husbands. So let us turn our attention towards domestic violence and where are its forms and protection of women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, which was groundbreaking in offering civil remedies like protection orders and also residence rights. But yet the statistics shows that significant imbalance is present. For example, in 2022, over 1,40,000 2,000 cases of cruelty by husband or their relatives, like ma'am mentioned about the father-in-law, mother-in-law as well, were found. They were registered under the BNS, far outstripping the documented use of PWDVA as such. And what do you think? What does this clear preference for criminal law recourse, often seen as more punitive over the civil protection offered by PWDVA, imply about the survivors' trust in acts mechanisms?
Okay. See, first of all, we need to understand that what domestic violence is specifically. Okay. So when we talk about the term domestic, okay, it refers to a home or a family first of all. Okay. And domestic violence, when you talk about, it signifies a violence that take place within the family. That means here the perpetrators are also from the family members. Okay. So this form of violence can be included the spouses, the other household members also. Okay. And specifically, when you talk about where this domestic violence defined statutorily, it is defined under the Protection of Women of Domestic Violence Act 2005 under Section 3. So here the legislative members very prominently define 4 kinds of violence which can be termed as a domestic violence. First is physical abuse, then sexual abuse, verbal abuse and economic abuse. Okay. To start with what physical abuse means, it of course I can say it is the most visible form of abuse a woman can have in a matrimonial home. It often, you can say, leaves the physical marks and injuries, and of course it includes punching or hitting, or you can say using weapons also sometimes to inflict that harm to the aggrieved person. Now here when I'm talking about the aggrieved person, that is also defined under the Domestic Violence Act Section 2A. Now this person is any woman who is or has been in a domestic relationship with the respondent and who alleges to have been subjected to any kind of domestic violence by the respondent. Okay, so this kinds of physical abuse is mostly we can see in the society, as ma'am correctly mentioned that women also accepted sometimes ki okay pati ne thappar laga diya to it's fine because they have economic instability. Okay, so these forms of abuse is vast in nature. I will discuss the statistics also. Now before going to the statistics specifically, I would also like to elaborate on the other forms of domestic abuses, that is sexual abuse. Now in India we know that marital rape is not criminalized yet, although many countries in the world already criminalize marital rape. But when you talk about sexual abuse specifically, it includes any conduct of a sexual nature that abuses or you can say humiliates or degrades or otherwise violates the dignity of a woman. Now dignity of a woman again we can trace from Article 21 that what dignity is. Okay, so sexual violence you can say it can be any abusive forms which can include rape, sexual assault, coercion or harassment also. Okay, verbal abuse can include humiliation, name calling, especially with regard to not having a child, and of course in Indian society as we know that with respect to male child, so that will come under the verbal abuse and repeated threats also which can cause physical pain to the person whom the aggrieved person or specifically the woman is interested into. And last is economic abuse. Now economic abuse when we talk about it basically restrains the woman economically, or you can say which can include rape, sexual assault, coercion or harassment also. Okay, verbal abuse can include humiliation, name calling, especially with regard to not having a child, and of course in Indian society as we know that with respect to male child, so that will come under the verbal abuse and repeated threats also which can cause physical pain to the person whom the aggrieved person or specifically the woman is interested into. And last is economic abuse. Now economic abuse when we talk about it basically restrains the woman economically, or you can say financial resources is restricted, or maybe employment opportunities is restricted, or you can say providing not providing the money for maintenance, even food, clothing or shelter, or forcibly deprive the woman with her financial status, including disposing the children also. Okay, and now there are certain judicial pronouncements also which is mentioned by the Supreme Court specifically. I would like to mention some. For example, in Lalita Tapo versus State of Jharkhand, the Supreme Court specifically broadened the legal recognition of relationships in the context of domestic violence. Now here in the contemporary era, we know that marriage as an institution is broad enough. The nature of domestic relationship is broad enough in Indira Sharma's case also. So in this Lalitha Kapoor's case, the judgment actually include and broaden the legal recognition of relationship to include live-in relationship partners also. So now the Domestic Violence Act is not only referred the agreed woman as the married woman, but live-in partners as well. So this is the major, you can say, broadened by the Supreme Court of India, which includes or protect the rights of the unmarried women also, live-in partners also. And lastly, the Sandhya Manoj and versus Manoj Bhimrao case also. The court broadened the scope of the Domestic Violence Act to include all possible perpetrators within the family to enhance the protection of the victims. See, it's not only limited to the husband, okay, who is doing physical abuse or verbal abuse or sexual abuse or economic abuse. In this case, the court very deliberately mentioned that any perpetrators, including the family members, it can be the mother-in-law, father-in-law, or the sister-in-law, to include all those members to to come under the purview of Domestic Violence Act. Now, when you talk about statistics of NCRB 2024, it is shown that the domestic violence and assault are the most reported crimes against women, with 18.7% domestic violence and assault 19.2%, which is of course a huge number. Apart from that, the National Commission for Women also in 2024 reported 6,237 cases only of domestic violence. And the highest ratio is reported from Uttar Pradesh, followed by Delhi, Maharashtra, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Haryana. So these are, you can say, some of the, of course, major threats which we need to work into. And of course, as again Deepikanta ma'am correctly mentioned regarding the societal structures and obstacles, of course it has many. For example, overburdened protection officers can be one of the major issues, then complex e-filing procedures, then police misclassification of the cases. So all this can hinder. Then prolonged court delays. So which all specifically I tried, I wish to pin down here that prolonged court delays or specifically the economic challenges which the women face if they are not independent, the lack of support from their family, which can actually undermine the Domestic Violence Act civil remedies and which drive the survivors to ask for a criminal remedy. Okay, so these are some of the reasons I believe which can be structural and societal obstacles to meet the civil nature of the Domestic Violence Act.
Ma'am, you very well explained the civil remedies given to the women here, starting from precedents, then legislature, then the act itself. But apart from all this, what do you think what are the structural or societal obstacles that limit the effective and widespread use of the act and which pushes the aggrieved women towards the more adversarial criminal route?
See, I believe societal obstacles, of course, with respect to fear of family rejection to accept by her own family members can be one of the major reasons. Because again, in Indian traditional families, they believe that once we give marriage to our daughters, we have nothing to do with her. So family support plays a very vital role here. So it is very much essential to family support in that particular case. Apart from that, the protection officers need to work very effectively. Although yes, data shows that they are overburdened with cases, and it is also mentioned under Section 8 and 9 of the DV Act that protection officers, if possible, to be a woman. Now, why women? She can be emotionally more engaged. Okay, what a woman suffer with respect to these phases of her life. So apart from that, overburdened cases, and then as I say, misclassification of cases as private matters can be one of the major reasons to societal and structural barriers.
Coming to you now. According to the 2022 statistics, a staggering 31.4% of all offences were categorized as cruelty by husband or his relative, as you already said, highlighting that domestic and intimate partner violence is the real cause of gender-based violence in India. Why has the intimate partner violence continued at such crisis level? what does this specific statistics where the home, which should be a sanctuary, becomes the most dangerous place to live in? Can you please tell us about the enduring power of the patriarchy and the restrictive gender norms in the family unit, and ultimately where the policy and the social interventions failing? Or what are the inherent limitations preventing us from adequately protecting women in their own homes?
First of all, I don't know how many of you are aware of this concept sexism. Sexism means dividing the role in the society, dividing the role of gender, division of gender roles. This part will be taken care of by husband, that part is her husband is going outside earning money, feeding the family. Whereas the entire responsibility lies with women. Okay? Then specification in particular, activities, specification in gender role, I think contributing in this, because as you rightly said that home, that is the safest option for the human being, for all living being, I guess, this is home. But sometimes we are stopped. Sometimes we are stopped because I just wanted to add with Madam one point, women are, despite all the cases, if I am not wrong, Uttar Pradesh is having highest number of reported cases. So despite all these things, what is stopping women? Because we are, first and foremost factor is economic factor. I am dependent on my husband. Okay? I am dependent on my husband and I have burden in the sense that I have my own limitations. My parents are also, I am not from a well-to-do family. So even if I go back to my family, maiden family, they will not support me, neither emotionally nor financially. First of all, so it is better that I stay back. Let's not go. Let's not get into this, legal formalities. So I don't have money. At the same time, the role of the protection officer, I am very much critical to that. Protection officer, though the data is showing that they are overburdened, but the legal, formalities or legal access women are not getting. So what they are doing, okay, let me stay back. I am not going. I am not going because, for this, when I am, I am a woman, I am subject to domestic violence. I need legal support, that's true. Before that, I need emotional support. And I need a push factor, go outside and file a complaint. That is not done by anybody in this, neither from maiden family, nor from anyone from the in-laws, or, neither from maiden family, nor from anyone from the in-laws, or in my nearest and dearest circle. So I think that's why we feel it is safe and secure. Let's be here. शाम को तो सब मार खाएंगे, दिन को सब ठीक हो जाएगा. So this is a myth. ठीक है? So we are very much stopped by this kind of lack of supports in different form.
Now coming back to you, the PWDVA is legally designed to be comprehensive, acknowledging not just physical violence but also emotional, verbal, sexual and economic abuse like you already talked about. However, when we look at the reported cases, the cruelty statistic still seems to be dominated by incidents where physical or dowry-related violence is involved. Does this pattern reflect a fundamental failure of legal recognition or social acknowledgement of psychological and economical abuse in India?
See, I will not say, of course, the legal failure in per se, because there are sufficient laws into that. Okay, to protect, even we have a Dowry Prohibition Act to prohibit the dowries. But it is, of course, with respect to the mindset of the people. See, when the society is not accepted a particular law, okay, then how the application or executive will play a role in the society. See, when you talk about, for example, protection officers, as a ma'am criticized that. See, if they specifically work, okay, or specifically in their domain, what the functions are there under Section 9, then of course I don't think there will be much problem with respect to filing of the cases also. Okay, so yes, you can say that we need awareness, more awareness specifically, to make the women understand that they are not standing alone when they are victimized. So that specific mindset is necessary, I believe.
And one more thing that you asked me the question, and this is the very important part. society like India, I won't comment patriarchal, matriarchal, what, matrilineal or what. Pati Parmeshwar hota hai, chahe mare, chahe peete, Pati is always Parmeshwar. And in Manu Samhita also, I can't mention the clause right now. Even if Manu suggested, even if the husband is alcoholic, women have no option to look back or look forward. So this is the society, this is the history of Indian society, this is the culture, the very rooted human culture. Okay, in India, the Pati is always Parmeshwar. If I don't get my parents' support, he is the only support system of mine. So I cannot go back.
And this is where the failure of society comes in, and not just legal framework like you answered.
Legal framework is there, as Madam rightly mentioned, but I need a push factor. Now we need to file the case where we are lagging behind.
Exactly, but first psychology and society comes, then only legality comes. Right?
And here lies the push factor.
Ma'am, also how can research, policy and public discourse better capture and address these critical yet often invisible non-physical dimension of domestic abuse and the protection of women from domestic violence act 2005?
See, research work of course help, because when you do research, we go to the field directly, okay, to collect the data. So, and it is directly from the target group, means the women who are actually victimized, okay, or expert opinion we can take, for example, the judges or magistrates who are actually dealing with the cases. So, of course, research work can better highlight the actual causes of domestic violence and what remedy actually is needed for, for making the women more protective in nature. So that is how the research can help. And the policy reforms, of course, can enhance recognition, first of all, and remedies for non-physical abuse by mandating training, you can say, on psychological trauma, or it can reform through, lowering the evidentiary thresholds which is needed for the Domestic Violence Act. Then expanding the first step mechanisms also can help. And one more thing I would like to add here, that integrating the rehabilitation, for the women specifically, like the ministry in this year on January 22, 2025, launched one Mission Shakti portal, okay, where it aims to enhance the accessibility of various government schemes for women. And it established the quality mechanisms also, to rescue, protection and rehabilitation for the women. So I think this kinds of policy recommendations will of course help. And thirdly, with respect to public discourse is concerned, then of course we all are in the social media platforms today. Or you can say social media campaigns will help by social media, using social media platforms, TV, or bystanders intervention drives. Then of course community sensitization for awareness programs can be done. Then digital influencer partnership can be done. For example, UNICEF various times it coordinate with the celebrities also. See, the objective is not to making celebrities a part of that UNICEF thing, but being an individual level. Sometimes what happened is the people actually value that identity of a person. For example, Amitabh Bachchan. People sometimes Amitabh Bachchan ne bola to sahi bola hoga. Kind of that. So that impact plays a very vital role. Okay, so these kinds of partnerships, I believe, can help and normalize the discussions on emotional, psychological, and specifically economic harms of the women.
Okay. Now that you talked about schemes and provisions, also can you explain regarding the provisions of protection officer under Domestic Violence Act?
See, protection officers are mentioned under Section 8 of the Domestic Violence Act, and the functions are mentioned under Section 9. So, protection officers are many actually what is divided under the Domestic Violence Act, starting from assessing the victim. Now, assessing here means that he basically works as a link, you can say, between the aggrieved women and the legal system is concerned. That is, provide guidance on the legal rights of her, then filing the domestic incident report, that is the DIR, which is again one of the responsible factor or essential factors to initiate the legal proceedings. But recently in one of the cases, Prabha Tyagi versus Kamlesh Devi, Supreme Court mentions that yes, DIR report is necessary under Section 12, but it is which must consider of course by the magistrate. But if it is unavailable, it is not mandatory for initiating the proceedings. So without DIR report also it can be proceed. Then legal support provide karna, that is to providing legal support or to assist the victims is again comes under the work of protection officers under the Legal Services Authorities Act 1987. Then providing monetary relief is also one of the component which is where the protection officers is responsible. Then shelter services if needed, the protection officer must arrange for a safe shelter home for the victim, and medical services, because sometimes it is happened that the victim requires medical assistance as well. So if the victim suffers injuries, then protection officers must arrange a medical examination or medical assistance also. So these are some of the functions which is mentioned under the Domestic Violence Act.
Thank you.
Coming towards the last question, studies in India rarely explore how masculinities are constructed in regional, caste-linked or community-specific contexts. Although these identities heavily influence gender-based violence pattern, why is this an urgent research gap, and how can region-specific masculinity study contributes to more effective violence prevention models, like you said about the states of UP and Haryana, ma'am?
Lack of appropriate yardstick in research, in the sense, for example, how will you take community-based